Hello, hey, this is your host, Mark Gunnels. I am here with the lineups. It's March Madness season, baby. The best time of the year. The bracket is out. It's been a wild, wild season of the freshman class, obviously, has been highlighting the year. The talk around Darryn Peterson has been a major talking point. And who better to talk about all things Kansas Jayhawks than yours truly, Mark Gunnels? Kansas heads into this tournament after the Big 12 tournament with a team that might be one of the most fascinating in the bracket for obvious reasons. They've got elite guard play led by one Darryn Peterson, the coaching advantage that you have with Hall of Fame head coach Bill Self, and a ceiling that could absolutely lead them to the Final Four. But there's also scenarios where things can go sideways very early for the Jayhawks. We're going to dive all into it here. Last weekend, the Jayhawks headed into the Big 12 tournament as the third seed in the conference, which many say is the best conference in the nation. I totally agree. I mean, you have the heavy hitters in Houston, Arizona, Iowa State, Texas Tech, especially before JP Toppin went down with the season-ending injury. It's a very, very loaded conference. I mean, BYU, led by AJ DeBansta, finished 9-9, but they still got a 6th seed. So that just shows you the respect that the Big 12 conference has at the very top. And then even teams at the bottom can get you. I mean, Kansas has lost games to West Virginia, UCF, had a couple of close games, lost to Cincinnati in Allen Fieldhouse. So this conference is obviously loaded from top to bottom. They headed into the Big 12 tournament as the 3 seed, had a tiebreaker over a couple teams, and won the first game, beat TCU in a rematch game, played them earlier in the season inside Allen Fieldhouse, a game they should have lost. If you don't remember that game or you didn't watch it, I mean, they were down by, I believe, 12 points with about 2 or 3 minutes left in the game. A lot of devil magic happened inside Fog Allen, as it tends to happen a lot inside that building. And they ended up winning that game in overtime. Darryn Peterson actually subbed himself out in that game as well before all the national attention got turned into a wildfire against Oklahoma State. But then he came back in with seconds left because they were down by 3, gets fouled behind the 3-point line, makes 3 free throws, forces overtime, then sits out in the overtime. But Kansas still won that game over the Horned Frogs. And I say all that to say this, and we're going to get into Darryn Peterson later. You better believe it. We'll get into all of that. But you beat him in the Big 12 tournament in the first game. You had the double bye. So you played him in the quarters. It was a close game. It was another hard-fought game. TCU is going to be a team that you may want to pick for a potential upset in that second round against Duke. They're in that 8-9 matchup against Ohio State. TCU is a very hard-nosed team. They're well coached. They move the ball well. They play at a slow tempo, and they're very physical. But I'll say all that to say this. Despite that win, Kansas has just not looked good lately. I mean, these last 2 or 3 games, I mean, yeah, they blew out Kansas State on senior day in Allen Fieldhouse, 104-85. But before that, he had a rough trip to Arizona. Not just Arizona Wildcats. I mean, yeah, if you lose to them on the road in Tucson, okay, that's a legit national title contender. That's understandable. But then you follow it up and you go to Tempe and you lose to Arizona State by 10 points. That was very discouraging. And like I said, you beat Kansas State on senior day after that, and then the TCU game, and then let's get into the Houston game. I mean, in the semis, Friday night in Kansas City, a rematch. KU also beat Houston earlier in the season at home. That's the common theme here. Kansas inside Allen Fieldhouse has been a totally different team than away from the Fog. And that's a problem when you're going into March Madness, obviously, right? Because you're not playing any games in Lawrence. They're all neutral site games. And more often than not, you're going to be the favorite, at least for the first weekend for sure. You're a blue blood program. So we know how that happens in March. The game is close in the second half. All the neutral fans that don't have a dog in the fight start rooting for the underdog. But this Houston game, it's not even the fact that Kansas lost this game. It's how they lost. The score was 69-47. Kansas shot below 30% from the field. It was ugly. They got beat up on the glass. They looked lifeless. Now, my thinking for the Big 12 tournament and just conference tournaments in general, it's not the end-all, be-all. We've seen teams be hot, go on a run, win 4 games in 4 days, and then lose in the first round of the Big Dance. And you've seen teams lose their first game in the conference tournament and end up going on a Final Four run. So it's not the end-all, be-all. However, you still would prefer to go into the tournament with some type of momentum, right? Now, right now, this team, they've been in flux all year. Obviously, with the on and off of Darryn Peterson, will he play? Will he not play? He plays the first half, doesn't play the second half. They haven't had a lot of cohesiveness throughout the course of this season. But to be fair, in the last 7 games, Darryn Peterson has played an average of 30 or more minutes a game. Ironically, right after the national media storm in Oklahoma State. Ever since that game, he's been playing full normal minutes as the game calls for. Now, there's been a couple games where he played like 28 minutes, but the game was a blowout. So that's why he didn't get over the 30-minute mark. So that is a good sign. But the bad sign is, at times, they still go through these big scoring droughts. And I think a lot of it has to do with they're still trying to figure out how to play with him and not playing through him. It's a difference, right? It just looks different when everything is cohesive, the ball's moving, and he gets his points in the flow of the offense. Now, what I will say is, I do love his aggressiveness lately. He's been getting to the free throw line a lot more. I think that is a sign that he's getting healthier. He looks a little springier. If you watch this high school tape, Darryn Peterson was not this jump shooting guy that he's kind of turned out to be in Kansas. And luckily for the Jayhawks, he's been really good at it. I mean, catch and shoot, he's one of the best in the country. But heading to the season, that was kind of the question mark, is how good of a jump shooter will he be? But there was no doubt about his skill set from the mid-range, his handle, his athleticism at the rim. And those are things that we haven't really seen throughout the course of the year, but you're starting to see more of that lately over the last 3 or 4 games. So I do think that's something that they can hang their hat on as far as trying to make a run here. But before I get too deep into the Darryn Peterson thing, let's talk about the others, because that is really going to determine how far this team goes. No matter how good Darryn Peterson is, if he averages 30 points a game on efficient shooting, the other guys still going to have to step up and make some shots. Let's start with Trey White. Senior, a lot of experience. He's been in Illinois, USC. He's been around the block. This was last year, first year at Kansas. He really struggled last weekend in Kansas City, to say the least. He only averaged 5.5 points per game, shot 29% from the field, 22% from 3 in the 2 games in Kansas City during the Big 12 tournament. But that's not who he is. On the season, he's averaging 14 a game, gives you 7 rebounds roughly, and he shoots 42% from 3 on the season, which is a career high for him. They need him to be the X factor offensively. He was the guy when Peterson was out, the lineup, in and out, that they could rely on the draw fouls, knock down shots, and kind of be that Swiss Army knife. Like I said, he averages nearly 7 rebounds a game as well to go along with his 14 points. He's a senior. He's been on big programs before. Obviously, this is the biggest spotlight, being at Kansas, a true blue blood. but he is a guy that Bill Self has talked countless times about, is how he affects the game in multiple ways. But for my money, it's scoring and knocking down threes is how he's going to be the most effective for this team to have success over the next week and change. I mean, look at this stat right here. Listen to this. When he scores 15 or more points, it's happened 17 times this year where he's done that. Kansas is 14-3 in those games. So getting to that 15-point mark is very crucial for him. He averages 14, so a little bit under that. They're going to need him to play his basketball in order to make a run here in March Madness. Let's go to their point guard, Melvin Counsell Jr. I can't remember a time where a guy, actually it's never happened, a guy that's only been at Kansas for less than a year, another transfer, that's been this well received by the fan base, the coaching staff, national media, and etc. In this era of NIL, the transfer portal, it's rare that you get guys that really show that true passion and embrace being where they're at. Most of the times it's just a pit stop to the next level or whatever is their future endeavors. But he's fully embraced being a Kansas Jayhawk. I mean, on senior day, after his speech, the guy got on his knees and kissed the big Jayhawk at half court. He fully loves being there, coming from small schools, St. Bonaventure, and etc. He's been on the national stage for the first time in his career. He's always been overlooked, the underdog, even in high school, not a highly rated guy. He brings that dog mentality. I mean, he often says, if you're not a dog, you're dog food. That's like his famous quote that's resonated around Jayhawk Nation. I mean, when he brings the ball up inside Allen Fieldhouse, the student section literally starts barking. It sounds like they're booing, but they're literally barking. So he's definitely a guy, especially after the last 2 years, where myself and many other KU fans alike have questioned the heart of the team, which has never been a thing during the duration of Bill Self's tenure at Kansas. They've always hanged their hat on being tougher than you, making you play ugly, playing tough defense, and et cetera, et cetera. So Melvin Counsell embodies all of that, but at the same time, he still is a flawed player. You know, despite all of the love and the passion he brings to the game, he's not a perfect player. He's shooting below 40% from the field, just not good from your guard. You're a lead guard that handles the ball most of the time. But it has been switching a little bit between him and DP. I've noticed Peterson has been bringing the ball up a lot more lately, and I want to see more of that. But for the season, Melvin Counsell averages 12.9 a game, gets you 4.8 rebounds, 5.1 assists. And here's another stat. I'm going to give you these key stats for all these others and why, if you like Kansas to make your run or if you don't, these are key stats that you need to keep in mind. So for Melvin Counsell, when he has 6 or more assists in a game, it's happened 13 times this year. KU is 11-2 in those games. 11-2 in games that Counsell has 6 or more assists. In those 2 losses, one was against Duke on a neutral floor without Darryn Peterson. It was still a close game. And at North Carolina in Chapel Hill. Those are the only 2 losses. So Melvin Counsell, he's not a great three-point shooter at all. He did make 9 threes against NC State in a late non-conference game, which was just a complete out-of-body experience. So that's been something I wouldn't count on moving forward. It hasn't happened since then. I don't think he's even made half of that in the game since then. But he's a guy that plays heavy minutes. He leads the Jayhawks in minutes. I mean, there's been games where he's played all 40 minutes. And I think he was just burnt out last week. in Kansas City. Even Bill Self mentioned it. He gave him a day off on Sunday at practice because he doesn't come out the game, and I don't expect him to come out any games moving forward now since it's win or go home. So he's a guy that doesn't turn the ball over, though. Low turnover guy, gets you about 5 or 6 assists a game. And if he can knock down a couple open shots, because teams are going to blitz Darryn Peterson, they're going to dare others to make shots, which is why Trey White is very, very crucial because he's their best three-point shooter percentage-wise. Cancel, not so much, but if he can make a couple, that could go a long way in Kansas making a run here. Next guy, Bryson Tiller. Freshman, power forward. Now, he had another rough Big 12 tourney. Pretty much all these guys, if you see the theme here, they all had a rough Big 12 tournament, okay? That's a common thing. I mean, in the Big 12 tournament, he had a decent first game against TCU, but the Houston game was really bad. Bad to the point where he got benched in the second half. Like, didn't play a single second in the second half of that game. He only had 2 rebounds in the first half and no blocks. Oftentimes throughout the year, Bill Self has stressed physicality, being tough. And Bryson Tiller has struggled with that at times, but he's very skilled. I mean, this guy, I think he's definitely going to come back next year to play, whether it's at Kansas or some other school. You never know now. But he's a future first-round NBA pick. He has a soft touch around the rim. He can knock down threes. He's 6'11". He's nimble. A little bit of a Chris Bosh, I would say, in this game. Just not as much volume from three. But I think that's more of the system and what Kansas wants. They want him to play more inside and be more physical. But you can see their raw skill set. But moving forward, I think it's very crucial. The main stat for him in terms of winning for Kansas, when he scores 10 or more points, Kansas is 12-1 in those games. That may be the most telling stat out of all these guys so far. But I got one more for you. Flory Badunga, starting center. I think he's the best defensive player in the country. He won Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year. If he doesn't lead the nation in blocks, he's definitely up there. And not only that, he alters a lot of shots as well. Very athletic, one of the best lob threats in the country. Not a guy you give the ball to and say, give me a bucket. As far as back to the basket, he can at times, but that's not his forte. He's more of a rim runner, get out in transition, get you easy buckets that way. But his defensive impact is where he makes his money. And in 18 games this year, he's had 3 or more blocks. In those 18 games, Kansas is 16-2 in those games. So all of that to say, while all the headlines are going to be about Darryn Peterson, and I get it, because for my money, he should be the number 1 pick in the draft. I think he's the most talented player in the country. I believe that we haven't seen the full 100% Darryn Peterson this season. He's been battling with different injuries, hamstring, the cramping issue, and you can tell by his lack of explosiveness for most of the season. But I think we're getting back to that point where you're starting to see more of it, and I hope for his sake, after all this talk and national attention for all the wrong reasons, that he does lead Kansas on a deep run to kind of quiet that noise. However, his running mates need to be there with him, because these 4 other guys I mentioned in the starting lineup, they're going to be playing heavy minutes, barring foul trouble, because Kansas does not have a deep bench at all. They mainly play 2 guys off the bench, Jamari McDowell and Marco Jackson. That's it. They go 7 deep. And to be quite frank with you, I don't think either of those bench players are great options, especially from a scoring standpoint. So You're going to see a lot of heavy minutes for these starters. Luckily, in the NCAA tournament, you do get a day off in between games. And if you're fortunate enough to advance to the second weekend, then you obviously get nearly a week off until you play your Sweet 16 and maybe Elite 8 game. So let's look at the path here. Selection Show is one of my favorite days, by the way. I love Selection Sunday, man. I mean, how can you not? You know, because everybody starts filling out their brackets. You even got like your grandma who hasn't watched one college basketball game all year. Now she's an expert. And with how wacky the tournament is, she may win the pool and didn't even watch one game. When you've been grinding, watching every dribble of every game you can, and you finish last in your bracket pool. That's just how it goes sometimes. So Kansas fans didn't have to wait too long to see their name called. They were part of the first region to get unveiled on Selection Sunday, the East region. Let's look at the East region, man. I mean, you got the number 1 overall seed in Duke in your region. Then you go down from the 2 seed, you got UConn, Michigan State's the 3, Kansas, obviously, you're the 4. St. John's 5, Louisville 6. I mean, it's a pretty loaded region, especially for name value when you look at head coaches too, right? I mean, Duke, you got John Shire, who's been doing excellent following the footsteps of Coach K. UConn, obviously, Hurley, national champion. Michigan State, Tom Izzo. We know about him, obviously, in March. Kansas, you got Bill Self. I mean, it's loaded. St. John's, Rick Pitino. So it's a really interesting region. And if you look at their first round matchup, I don't believe you could have asked for a much better draw considering you're a 4 seed. I mean, you get to play Cal Baptist. This is a program that hasn't been a D1 program for not even 10 years yet, I believe. They're fairly new in D1. They won their conference tournament in wild fashion. The opponent missed a dunk at the buzzer that would have forced overtime. And I think as far as matchups, this is probably one of the best matchups you can get because they're one of the lowest teams in the country as far as volume and shooting threes. And if you're a KU fan, you know how it is in the March when it comes to teams just getting hot from 3 and at a ridiculous volume. But Cal Baptist doesn't even shoot that many threes, and they don't make a lot either. So that's a good sign. They do have a guard that averages over 20 points a game, Dominique. So he's a guy that I believe will be front and center on the scouting report. But if you just neutralize him a little bit, I don't see Kansas having much problem getting out of this first round matchup. Right now, they're about 14.5-point favorites in that game Friday night in San Diego. And I may have to make that trip, guys. If you don't know, I reside in Los Angeles, originally from Kansas City. Grew up big KU fan my whole life. Didn't have an NBA team there, obviously. But I'm only about two hours away from San Diego. So I may have to make that trip this weekend. And I think I'm going to take the risk and go to the game on Sunday. Because I think we're going to win Friday. And then Sunday, most likely, I think you're going to play St. John's. St. John's plays Northern Iowa. But this is not your grandfather's Northern Iowa. And you know what I'm talking about. KU lost to Northern Iowa about 15 years ago in the second round. Huge upset. Kansas was a 1 seed. Northern Iowa was an 8 or a 9. I can't remember. But it was that 8-9 second round matchup. And Kansas went down. That's when KU had the Morris twins leading the way. That was a national championship type of team and didn't even make it out the first weekend. So, but this is not that Northern Iowa team. They don't shoot the 3 ball nearly as well. They finished 6th in their conference. So they had no business being here. The only reason they're here is because they won their conference tournament. So I don't think St. John's will have much issues here. I think their athleticism And with Rick Pitino as head coach, I think that'll be enough to get by. And you're looking at a very, very interesting second round of 32 matchup Sunday in San Diego, Kansas, St. John's, Bill Self versus Rick Pitino. I mean, wow, that is absolute cinema. But I like the draw. I like Kansas draw here. I really do. I did not want to see Wisconsin as the 5 seed in the potential second round matchup. I didn't want to see Arkansas in the second round matchup. I know they're a 4, but they may have been a 5 if they lost in the SEC championship game. And you look at the other 5s, Texas Tech. You just don't want to see teams that you played in conference in the tournament if you don't have to, right? Because they know you know them. There's no real advantage there. So I would prefer not to see Texas Tech. They're a 5, and then the other 5 you got is Vanderbilt. I'm cool. Vanderbilt went on a nice run. They're hot right now. And I know St. John's just went on a run too. I know they just won the Big East tournament. I get it. And they smacked UConn. But all in all, St. John's hasn't played anybody besides UConn. They played them 3 times. The Big East is terrible. It's the worst power conference in the country. I mean, without question. And this is not to say that St. John's can't beat Kansas, because they're really good defensively. And that's something that I worry about with Kansas, especially in the half court when the game slows down in March. Most of the time it is in the half court and they go through these scoring spells. But St. John's is not great offensively either. And then if you factor in their strength of schedule, I think it makes their numbers probably look a little bit better than what they really are. I mean, look at this. Offensive net rating for both teams. Kansas right now on KenPom is 57th. St. John's is around 41, 40-ish, right? Defensively, though, Kansas is 10th in KenPom. But if you factor in strength of schedule, which they do on KenPom, they're number 1 in defensive net rating. So Kansas hangs their hat on defense, being ugly, making you play bad. And while their half-court offense isn't the best, you still do have Darryn Peterson, who is the most polished offensive scorer in the country. So when things get ugly, when you're going through a little drought, just give the ball to Darryn Peterson. Let him make a play. Either he gets doubled, he finds the open man, hopefully it's Trey White, and you make him pay. Or he goes one-on-one, he attacks the rim, goes to the line, where he's a really good free throw shooter, over 80% from the line. So also, Kansas is top 40 in the country in free throws efficiency, and they were first in the Big 12. So they're a really good free throw shooting team, and that matters a lot. How many times do you see teams just pee down their legs because they miss clutch free throws down the stretch? So that's something that you can't overlook this time of year. So I'm looking forward to it. Like I said, I don't think they have much problems with Cal Baptist on Friday night. I think you most likely see St. John's on Sunday in the Sweet 16. I like the matchup. It'll be tough. It'll be gritty. It'll be ugly. But you have the best player on the floor by far in Darryn Peterson. I want to argue you may have the 2 best players in that game with Badunga as well. So I think they'll find a way to escape that game. And then moving forward, you're looking at probably playing Duke in the Sweet 16, a team that you played earlier this year in the Champions Classic without Darryn Peterson. And it was a tie game with about 5 minutes to go. The final score, it really isn't indicative of how close that game was. And Duke's a little banged up right now. And I said on X that this is the path I wanted, as far as I wanted Duke to be the one in Kansas region because I think they're the weakest one. Now, I know they're the number one overall one, but I'm factoring in their current state of injuries and the fact that Kansas already played them and lost. I like that as a possible revenge spot for Kansas. And then if you somehow get past Duke, maybe Elite Eight, you're playing like a UConn, who you've also played this year in Allen Fieldhouse. You lost by 3 points, and this was also without Darryn Peterson. So all things considered, I don't think you could have asked for a much better path. I think the ceiling for this team is still Final Four, but the floor is losing in the second round to St. John's. So I don't think there's many teams in the country that have more of a wide range of outcomes from potential Final Four. And at that point, your ceiling is a national championship, or your floor is losing in the second round. But that's kind of what Kansas has been this year with all the in and out of Darryn Peterson out the lineup. And I just want to be on record and say this. A lot of these people talking about Darryn Peterson didn't even watch Kansas basketball this year. They have no idea what they're talking about. DP came out recently after the Big 12 tournament loss to Houston and was really open about what started all of the cramping issues that happened back in the summer. Bill Self has a boot camp every summer where they just run. Like there's no basketball involved. They're just running, conditioning type stuff. And his body locked up on him. And he called it a traumatic experience. He had to go to the hospital. It was bad. And I think at that point, he has an agent. His dad is also very involved in what he has going on as well. You can see them sitting next to each other at games. I believe that he was told that whenever you feel something locking up or some type of discomfort in your legs, to ask out. I think it was above him. I don't believe that a 19-year-old kid is just willingly not trying to play basketball. I just don't believe it. But when you're the potential number one pick, you are in line to make generational wealth. You're going to have handlers that are going to be above you and instruct you on what to do. Now, when it became a national storm after the Oklahoma State game, I think they had to pivot and say, okay, now it's out there nationally. This is a big deal. It's not a good look. This can hurt our chances of being the number one pick. If you feel like you can play through some discomfort, keep playing. And like I said earlier, ever since that game, he's been playing about 30 or more minutes a game. But I also think it's coinciding with him getting healthier as well, or maybe just trusting his body more. Because I think he was a little timid. That's why he was settling for so many jump shots. But now you see him attacking the rim more, getting to the free throw line, being more explosive off the dribble. And I think that's a good sign and bodes well for Kansas moving forward into March Madness. So at the end of the day, they're going to need their role players to step up, but they're going to need DP to be the head of the snake so everything can fall in line. And I think they understand that. I mean, Melvin Council often refers to DP as Batman. He's here to save the day. So I would love nothing more than Darryn Peterson to lead the Jayhawk team to a Final Four run, to just shut up all the noise from the outside. But we'll see. It's gonna be an interesting path. It's never easy in March. It's win or go home. But I do like their draw. I like their draw. But you still gotta play basketball. You still gotta play the game. And you gotta be efficient. Play defense. They gotta rebound. They've been struggling and giving up a lot of offensive rebounds, second chance points. So those are things I'm gonna look forward to. But Rock Chalk Nation, it's here, man. I mean, have fun with it. I know there's a lot of negativity right now after that embarrassing loss to Houston, but it's a new season. And that's what Bill Self said as well. So gear up. And if you're in San Diego this weekend, let me know. I may be out there. I may not be out there. We can link up, grab a beer, and rock chalk. Talk to you guys soon.